Honestly, Craig is the MVP of our podcast.
Craig has saved multiple of my podcasts. Even today, I had to send Layla a backup file. I asked her to edit Mortified today, and Craig was there for us, so thank you. This little bear.
In Craig we trust.
That's right.
When we look back onto the WAV files and only notice 2 WAV files instead of 3.
Maybe this will be our opener. Bears do always take care of me.
All right.
Boo!
You cannot start off the spooky season where you contractually get to torture us with a pun. That's so inauspicious. Oh.
Welcome to spooky season, bitches!
Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where 2 ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
And once again, listeners, it is time. It's that time of the year where me and Josh hand the podcast reins over to Michael and let him pick a bad amount of horror movies that are vaguely related to Christianity. It's Michael's spooky season. Everybody buckle in. This week we are kicking off the spooky season with Annabelle Creation. Before we
should play the most wonderful time of the year because we're here. It's time.
Absolutely not.
I just want to say last year you started us off with my favorite movie of all time, which was Demon House. And it was an incredible time. I still think it's my favorite podcast we've ever recorded because it includes us talking about whether or not a demon had butt sex with a man who looked like a Keebler elf. But this is what you gave to us this year, Michael. Why?
This was a fun time. I don't know what you're talking about.
God. So Michael made us watch Annabelle Creation because if you don't follow him on Twitter, why are you listening to this? But he is... doing the Conjuring verse, but like the good ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking you through a curated watch of the Conjuring films. I was telling the boys off cast that I was avoiding The Nun because I fell asleep in a movie theater to The Nun. Turns out Valak is more scary as a supporting cast member, even though she does make an appearance in this film.
Great. Good. I mean, how are we going to do this? We're just going to do the plot rundown. You're going to take us through this, Michael?
Yeah, so I am going to pretty heavily rely on the Conjuring Wiki, which is just a beautiful thing. It wrote down a plot summary better than I ever could. So, full disclosure, I have seen this movie 3 times. The other films we've watched, the next one I've only seen once. The other 2 I've seen probably a dozen times, so I'll be able to recite those from memory.
Yay.
Cool.
I also did start with arguably the least scary of The Conjuring, but chronologically the beginning.
Let's just get into it.
Let's just do it. Let's just talk about this stupid doll.
Let's just rip this Band-Aid off.
All right, so let's talk about the supervillain origin story of none other than Annabelle. So for those of you who don't know, real-life Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann doll that the Warrens were called in to investigate because she was leaving notes around the house and was choking one of the owners one night in their sleep. They woke up with like scratch marks all over them. And we'll get a little bit more into Annabelle's story as like the films uncover it. And in a way, this spooky season is very centered around Annabelle because we're beginning with creation, then we're going into Annabelle, and Annabelle actually kicks off our third pick, which is The Conjuring. And then we're rounding it off with The Conjuring 2, which Annabelle doesn't really appear in.
when Annabelle was choking the woman, was it like in this movie where like her demon form came out, or were the just Raggedy Ann hands softly caressing the woman's neck?
I really like the idea of a plush doll just being like, die, die!
It's like Kermit trying to kill you.
So they never said.
Yeah, it's because that's what happened and it'd be too embarrassing for them to admit it.
I got bodied.
Because imagine being like, I got my ass kicked by a Raggedy Ann doll.
I got bodied by a felt creature.
Though the scratch marks do indicate that there were demon hands at play here. And so this was not actually the doll, and we have to be very mindful. This is what makes this film Christian. It was not a haunting, but a possession. The demon was using the Annabelle doll as a conduit for evil.
And I want to put a weird message around this movie. The Annabelle doll is real, as in there is an object that they claim haunted people.
Mm-hmm.
This movie decides to give up a just complete, from everything I've seen, absolutely made up, well, let's just go hog wild here, and connect things that were not actually connected. Because if you actually try to think about it, like, well, we know the Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll. Then why does it matter that this movie starts with a doll maker? What is even any of this?
Well, this is like truly where The Conjuring, it has a very light touch with it's based on a true story. Like, inspired by a true story might be better, but if you notice, that does not take place in this film because it's all fiction.
Yeah.
This is just, there's a really creepy doll that they chose in the first Conjuring movie, and let's give her a story. And incidentally, I actually like this film more than Annabelle, which we'll be watching next week, but I think that this gives a really satisfactory, like I called it, supervillain origin story to the creepy doll Annabelle. So let's dive in. We're in 1943.
The United States had just declared war on both Axis powers at this point. This
is not important. We're talking about the real great evil of demon dolls.
I'm sorry, the Axis powers declared war on the United States, not the other way around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I don't want to mansplain history to you.
That's all I have.
So the Mullins family we meet, and Sam Mullins is a toy maker.
And discount Liam Neeson.
Yes, that is
so true.
Not incorrect, actually. So he gives Annabelle, the doll, to his daughter, Bee, who unfortunately dies pretty much in the opening scene. They pull over on the side of the road, and she runs into the road and gets hit by a car. And so this family was hit by loss, and they did what any faithful family would do and prayed that someone would give their daughter back to them. Well, someone was listening to that, and guess what, audience? It was not God, it was a demon. So the demon is asking permission to transfer its spirit, which they used B, their dead daughter, as a visual, into one of the porcelain dolls. And they were like, oh my god, I love this. And we will learn what happens a little bit more later, but the Annabelle doll ends up showing its true colors and actually attacks one of them. But we don't know that yet. So we skip forward in time to the 1950s, 1957 to be exact. And the Mullins family are like, this household has been kind of boring for 12 years without our child or a doll to haunt us. So we're going to invite a bunch of orphans and nuns into our house.
Orphans and nun?
Oh, yeah. Orphans and nun.
Super
singular.
Nun, by the way.
Yeah. She is a super nun, but not the nun. Very important.
She's not a titular nun, but she is...
No.
She's not the capital nun.
No, and we meet our hero, of the story, Janice. Janice is a young girl who had polio and now has trouble getting around. She's one of the orphans. We see this cute little scene of her and her friend, promising each other that they're going to be adopted together.
And it's such a shame, that polio at that point in time is really difficult for people to get, that under control. But thankfully, science worked really hard to create a vaccine that made it so that people didn't have to worry about that disease anymore. And a lot of people were hesitant about the vaccine, but knew that the disease was much more frightening.
But you know what actually really helped cure polio? Taking horse dewormer.
And throw
I feel like
Audience, get your fucking vaccine. If you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah. I feel like we should touch on the themes of disability in this movie, because there are, at least two people that I could tell that do have a disability, Janice and also Mrs. Mullins, who, has a mask that covers the left side of her face. I don't love how disability is handled in this film. I think it's pretty gross. We'll talk about Janice in a while, but there's a lot of her looking out the window at all the other girls running around and playing, and it kind of sucks that the movie's just yeah, this is what it's like to be a disabled person. Using I think she uses a crutch and a brace, for her right leg, but it very much frames that as something that is limiting, as opposed to something that actually gives Janice relief from her disability and allows her to actually have greater mobility. So this is a horror movie. I'm not surprised that it's going immediately into ableist tropes, but we should call that out and be like, hey, that's no good.
And specifically,
Absolutely.
There's a line that I'm just going to bring up now, even though it's a little bit further in the movie, where Janice is the demons, they target the weakest. And the nun is the weakest of faith, not of body. And it's yeah, but the demon is specifically doing things that if she did not have suffered from polio wouldn't have been an issue, though.
Yeah.
Right. I do also wonder, because this is always something I wonder about with period pieces, right? Are you being textually accurate with how people are treated, right? I do think that some of the, disbelief of the possessed is a horror movie trope, regardless of their, status of, anything, demographic status even, right? We see that with, men in horror movies, we see it with women, we see it really, cut across demographic groups. So maybe this is too generous of a read, but I almost took it as, everyone's being really shitty to Janice, and they would have been really shitty to Janice. And I don't think it pulls a punch, but then the nun says it, and that's where they lose me.
Yeah.
That's really where I'm that generosity dried right up.
Yeah, if they hadn't doubled down on it, maybe you could get that read. Also, the nun, the sister, is played by Stephanie Sigman, who is a Mexican-American actress, and there is another little girl who is black. Neither of those racial things get brought up. It is, like Michael said, 1957. It is doubtful whether either of those two people would have even been allowed in the house at the time because of racism. So, let's not... I don't want to give this movie too much credit.
And I totally
True.
see where you're coming from, Michael, but the point where I was lost even further, and again, I know I'm skipping ahead, but when Janice, for reasons we will touch, is in a wheelchair, and she's no one will want to adopt me. I am useless. I'll just get in the way. It's Jesus Christ movie. Oh my God.
That is after they had already lost me.
Oh,
that is
yeah.
after, yeah. I'm taking myself back to first watch. But no, that is absolutely correct. But Janice does one night get woken up by a noise. She decides to search this out, and she discovers a cute little note because Annabelle is like a pet cat, leaving gifts everywhere. The note says, "Find me."
And this is specifically something we see in the opening that the daughter, B, used to do with her father.
Mm-hmm. And this is a tactic that the Conjuring universe explains from demons. And my understanding is actually some demonologists believe this too, that a demon will try to make itself seem more like a friendly spirit, like Casper vibes, so that way you trust it and you let your guard down and allow it to possess you.
I have also seen that, but I also think I could say the sentence "some demonologists believe" and then literally fill in any sentence afterwards. Some demonologists believe that the Baja Blast works actually 4 times better than holy water.
I believe that's true, though. Even demons will not fuck with that.
Look, I don't want to rag on my potential future employers, because I did last night after watching this film spend a ridiculous amount of time looking up the training program offered by the Warrens foundation that they started about becoming an actual demon hunter.
If you give the Warrens
is a thing.
Any money, I'm going to kick your ass.
Well, they're dead. They're not going to take my money.
Their kids
don't worry.
will.
No, their kids aren't the ones who are running it. They just founded this group of psychics and paranormal investigators, and they had nothing to do with it for the last 25 years.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sure.
So let's not talk too poorly about my future employers, okay?
No.
Janice sneaks into Bee's room, which we have seen Sam warn the girls not to enter and that it was locked. And Janice also finds a dollhouse, which is really creepy and ominous. If you've seen The Haunting of Bly Manor, you know that dollhouses are always just really weird. Same with Hereditary, a film that I'll never make you two watch because I didn't like it very much.
That is the hottest take you've ever given on this podcast. I appreciate it, but I feel like there are going to be people that are going to at you in our small audience.
Yeah, you know what? At me. Let's argue about Hereditary and how it is the lesser of Ari's films. So, anyway, I'm just going to start a little flame war. Janice finds that key and then unlocks Bee's closet. And Annabelle is freed. Janice is what the fuck? This doll is creepy, and shuts the closet. And the closet opens.
We need to talk about the wallpaper, which can only be described as, what I assume Aaron's 12-year-old room looked like, which was just covered wall to wall in Bible pages.
Okay, firstly, I think the Bible pages are very cool. It's a very, cool way to set, symbolize, we're sealing the the demon. It's very Naruto in that aspect. But also, my 12-year-old bedroom had, of course, a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 poster and the Linkin Park symbol on the wall. So,
Aaron, the chances of you growing up into someone that I would respect and think highly of, if I just saw that snapshot, would be almost 0. But here you are.
Yeah, you got to talk to my partner about that.
Words work.
So. The closet keeps opening even though Janice locks it. She throws a sheet over the doll. Annabelle actually gets up from the chair that she was in and starts walking towards Janice.
Hated it.
This scared the fuck out of me. This was maybe the scariest part of the whole movie for me.
This was so good. I thought it was so artfully done because you have this creepy bed sheet over the doll and then it falls off and there's nothing there.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
It's very good as a filmmaking technique, but I almost shit myself.
The director, the people that make these movies, James Wan, right? Mm-hmm. I know he was a producer, not the director for this one, but still, he loves to do the thing where if you just look in the back half of the movie, the scariest shit you've ever seen is happening, and then that's it. That's it. You don't get it. We'll talk about it later.
Maybe.
I hate it. It's so scary.
I love it. I love these dangling threads like this. So Janice goes back to her room, seeing that Samuel's about to re-enter. And then, you know what? Annabelle's free now. So she's ready to just fuck some shit up and terrorize some orphans. Just like
Joker.
So Carol and Nancy, which are two of the older girls.
Who suck right now.
Yeah, they are Mean Girl caricatures. And so they're staying up and gossiping and telling stories about Esther, who is Samuel's wife, and they hear her bell ring that she has because she never leaves her room. And Carol and Nancy are wondering why the bell keeps ringing and Samuel's not coming. Their flashlight shuts off and they see Annabelle through their blanket as a representation of what Esther looks like in their stories, and it's so creepy and cool, and it's just this flash of this face.
It's again a very good moment because like you said, there's like a sheet over their heads, and the face presses through the sheet, and it's maybe like a second or like half a second, but it's like so scary. It's a very good jump scare.
Did you guys
I love
pause to look at the face? Because I did.
Of course.
No.
So it was literally like I couldn't tell if it was a full or a half doll face, but previously one of the girls had gotten a glimpse of the wife Esther, thank you. Got a glimpse of Esther's face and said she has a doll's face. And that's something that we get confirmation of later, that she has a partial doll covering up a scar. Mm-hmm. A bandage, I don't want to talk ill, but a bandage would have done better. Yeah. And the demon is literally playing into the fears that they were talking about. They were making fun of the fact that she had a doll's face, and then a doll-faced entity pretending to be Esther grabbed them. That's very creative, and I respect it. I hated every second of it.
I love this moment. This one got me the first time I watched it, and I was so into it. And of course, the demon disappears the moment Kate turns on the light. The moment there's light, it's like, nope, gone. And now we're on night 3.
Hold on. I want to interrupt you before that. Before this happens, Janice talks to Sister Charlotte. Mm-hmm. Specifically, she says, I have a sin to confess. And this is where the movie lost me, because I was like, that's not canon. Nuns can't give confession.
I knew, when I watched that, I went, Aaron's not going to like this.
It's just it's a weird thing to do. I'm not sure why they were they wanted to have the nun give confession, because notoriously the Catholic Church doesn't let women hold positions of power. So it's a very strange thing to be this not white, not priest, person is going to be taking confession. It's a very strange storytelling tact, and it kind of, it shows that I feel like the people who wrote this movie were we're actually not super worried about realism, right? They're we're going to do what we think fits the story best, and we talked about with the ableism, I don't agree with all their choices, but like Josh was saying earlier, right, that's a very good bit of foreshadowing when they're talking about how Mrs. Mullins has a doll's face, and they make the demon have a doll's face. That's just good writing. So I just wanted to call that out, that this is a story that's very much just trying to convey their narrative in the most thematic way possible, but not maybe the most realistic way possible.
In my headcanon, this takes place in a universe similar to ours, but a little different, what if-esque, where everyone got really cool with not being sexist and racist. Everyone got super duper cool with that, but demons are super real.
Yeah, that's the devil's bargain.
That's actually a trade I would make.
I would also make that
100%.
trade.
Yeah, actually, no, it's absolutely worth just all isms being destroyed except for demons existing. That's just that's just our Dungeons and Dragons world.
Ableism still exists, though, so there is still some progress we need to work through.
That's the problem, though, is that they didn't get rid of all of the isms.
They got rid of, 2 or 3. I'll still take it. I think I could take Malthus. I'm just calling it. He's a scrawny little guy. I think I could beat him up.
Fast forward to our exorcism special at the end of the month.
Great. There is one other detail that I should bring up. The 2 girls, before they see the face, they go into this barn that's outside of the house, and they make fun of this scarecrow that's here, and then they're sort of flirting with him, making fun of the scarecrow in front of the younger girls. And of course, this is Chekhov's Scarecrow. The Scarecrow comes back in the third act.
He's also kind of crucified.
He's extremely crucified. That's also true. You know
Yes.
when you're a farmer and you don't know what to do with your scarecrow, so you not only leave it in your barn, but you also crucify it into the wall.
There's a really good McElroy's joke about the man who invented the scarecrow during the day.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, and then he goes out at the night. He's like, I'm a nightmare weaver, Harold. Like,
I made the
God.
worst thing. Walk us through this third night, Michael.
Yeah, so we get ominous My Sunshine, which is going to be, like, stuck in my head weirdly of this, like, slow, creepy version of this song. And Janice turns off the gramophone, and then a bunch of the girls walk into the room. Janice is telling them about Bee, and then Linda accidentally shoots Annabelle with the toy gun, and then the doll, like, glares at her. And I love this foreshadowing, because one of the reasons that they know Annabelle is haunted is that in reality, the Raggedy Ann doll, but in the film universe, this, like, creepy porcelain doll would be in, like, remarkably different positions than where they would leave her. So they would, like, leave her upright in a chair, and she would be, like, in the kitchen on the counter, like, staring at them. And I just love that shit. Like, imagine coming home and, like, no one else is there, right? There's no person, but, like, one of your things is just, like, in a different room, in a different position, and...
Michael, you have cats. I know you live in that reality.
Yeah, honestly, like, I would just assume it was one of the cats and carry on my day. Like, I think a demon would just have a bad time haunting me, because I would be like, I don't believe in it.
I also, audience, anytime Michael says nose in reference to the real-life Raggedy Ann, just know that he means they claim this doll is super not haunted.
So, look, I don't know the story of these nurses and their experience. I think that, you know, as much as I'm an agnostic about God, I'm an agnostic about haunting. I would like to be proved wrong in my skepticism.
This is a good place to remind the audience of our stances on the paranormal, which is that Michael is, as he says, agnostic. Josh does not believe, but actively invites possession.
Catch these hands.
And I do not believe in demons, and also I will not fuck with anything haunted. That's just not. I am a white person, but I'm also not a white person, and that's just not what we do here.
And Aaron, there are two rules. I don't believe in ghosts, and well, what if?
But what if? I know. We take our what ifs very differently, because I'm like, what if my skepticism is wrong and they're out there and I want to, like, experience everything and get as close to the truth as possible? And you're over here like, what if I'm wrong and I get haunted? I don't love that.
Listen, do I believe in demons? No. Do I still have my rosary just in case? Maybe.
Meanwhile, I'm over here that's like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in demons. I think it's quite humorous that, like, this as a genre, like, exists where, like, people believe that a ghost is gonna get you. And listen, everyone's got their thing. If you believe in ghosts, I don't mean to be disrespectful. We all have our certain beliefs, and I know I can come off flippant. I could fight a ghost, though, and I believe that wholeheartedly. It always bugs me in points like this. Like, I just want to see someone take a 2x4 to this demon. Like, just somebody smack the ever-living shit out of it. And I think that might be why the recent, like, the remake where they were still kids, might be my favorite horror movie, because it ends with them just taking a 2x4 to that motherfucker. Just beat up the ghost!
Well, here's the thing. People don't have an incredible track record of going up against Annabelle, and we're about to see a little bit of that. So after the scene with the doll creepily looking at Linda, she goes back to bed, and Janice goes into the room and reads Bee's diary.
There's a part of the diary we should probably mention, and, like, she's flipping through it, and then after she skips, like, a ton of blank pages, it says, I'm home.
Oh, yeah!
Dear diary, today I came home. Yeah, that's horrible.
Very creepy.
It's amazing. I love it. See, okay, if I am ever haunted, I would like any creature, whatever you may be, to write in my journal on like a random day I'm home, and like date it, please, because I do want there to be proof, and I want the world to know that there's proof that you're out there.
If you ever disappear with like mysterious circumstances, I'll just make up a journal for you. And yeah,
I appreciate
we're getting
it.
real close to the Dear Evan Hansen storyline, so let's move on.
So Annabelle appears to Janice as B, and Janice asks Annabelle what she wants. And then Annabelle turns back around in demon form and says that she wants her soul.
Her soul!
That was a little much.
I laughed.
Yeah. It really, like... So the next film we watch has a lot of these moments where you can tell that they were really, like, trying to make a scary moment, but, like, were a little too heavy-handed. And I think Juan's mastery is when he really threads the needle of being a little withholding with the horror. This was not one of those moments. This was not withholding whatsoever.
There's a moment right before that where they have like these little Punch and Judy dolls that are like dancing all on their own. And what's her name? Janice is like, hey, who's doing that? Stop. And like the dolls just continue to dance. I thought that was much more effective than like seeing the demon go, your soul.
I don't need to see the demon. Like,
Not to backseat direct, but I thought it would have been way more interesting if like she had turned around and just like in the little girl voice had like said it like more low key and then like charged the camera, because he loves to do those scenes and those get me every time.
Yeah, those are really good. So Janice is trying to run, and she tries to go down the like little stairwell, but here's the thing, the chair that she usually uses to go up and down starts malfunctioning, and she goes back up. And just the horror of this scene and like how like trapped Janice is. The actress who plays Janice should have won a fucking Oscar for this performance, because that fear, it to me is not an experience I have ever had or could like think of, but the horror was like contagious. Like, she was scared and just acting the shit out of this scene. Janice is back to the top of the stairs with the demon, who proceeds to throw her down the stairs.
First the boot.
Yep. First
then
the
the
boot.
body.
I want to talk about that shot specifically because like it shoots her into the air. It's like almost comical how far up Janice goes, and then there's like a long, like they just like do a couple shots of the house being empty and quiet, and then the boot comes down, and I was like, oh, is she just gone now? And then her body drops, and that was very frightening. I was like, ah! It was a good one.
Yeah, and you know, it's pretty bad for Janice, who's already not having a good time, definitively.
I just want to take a moment to note that the moment that Linda and Janice, like, they have that interaction with Annabelle and, like, Linda shoots the doll, I think that is the moment in the movie where our main character is no longer Janice. I think that is the moment where our main character is now Linda, and we can go in, just know, audience, that that's what I'm thinking as we go through the rest of this. Because I thought that when that happened, I was like, that's a passing a torch moment.
Interesting. I still view Janice as the main character of this film, arguably the protagonist, and that
I don't
might
think
be
you're
a hot
incorrect, like, with that. Like, I think that this is just my own viewing of it, and I think that you are, like, because Janice doesn't disappear, but, like, I think that this is a important moment where Linda goes from side character to, like, one of the main characters.
Yeah, and, you know, Linda does step into her own, so we see her on the fourth night comforting Janice, going into B's room, and noticing Annabelle is gone from her chair. Linda waits in her and Janice's bedroom, waiting for Annabelle to appear. She uses the B's old toy gun to detect...
Which is the coolest toy in the world. It's a little, like, it shoots a ball, but it has a, like, fishing string, and,
yeah!
So, like, she can pull it back. Oh, and it's also important to note that after the fall, Janice is now in a wheelchair.
Yes. So, Linda is shooting in the dark, basically trying to figure out where the demon is, and the demon grabs the ball and pulls the toy gun from Linda. And then Annabelle appears and is really just like running after Linda, who runs to her bed, hides under the covers. And then the lamp shuts off. Linda sees these like crazy footprints leading to her bed, and she checks on the side of her bed and sees the doll looking at her before she's grabbed by the like demonic version of Annabelle. And I just love this shit.
I hate it. I was telling Aaron beforehand, there were 2 or 3 moments in this where I had to skip ahead 15 seconds because I literally could not. This was one of them.
Oh my god, I can't wait for the last 2 movies.
Oh.
Again, I think this is the least scary. Maybe the next one's least scary, but it's one of these.
The last 2 weeks of October are gonna suck.
So Sister Charlotte brings Janet outside for some sun the next day, and then starts pushing Janice to the barn. But what we quickly realize is that's not Charlotte. That's the demon.
Was the implication that we were supposed to believe it was the nun? Because, like, right away when, like, I saw the hands grab, like, the wheelchair and start pushing, I was like, oh, that's the demon.
Right, so Janice thinks it's the nun. I think we, the audience, are supposed to, like, have a hat tip because the hands are, like, pale and, like, inhuman looking.
Okay.
But also, it's definitely wearing a nun's habit, which is very funny that the demon, like, went and bought something from Spirit Halloween to do this prank on Janice.
It's like,
hi, do you guys happen to have this in a, like, size 6? I've got I got a thing.
No, just, I'm anticipating, like, the demon taking Bee's form and being like, hey, can I get this nun's costume? And just, like, stealing it. Just like a little kid. This little kid stole this nun's costume.
It's just really funny to me. You go to Spirit Halloween and you see Malthus, like 8 feet tall, fucking demon wings, just waiting in line patiently, like checking for coupons.
I really liked this scene where the chair gets pushed into the barn because similar to a show we watched last time on the spooky season, Midsommar, it is all done in bright light, and that's what it got me, because I was like, oh, I don't have to be scared because it's a scene that's outside, and then all of a sudden, like, we get the dun, and then, like, she's being hurried toward the barn by, like, a demonic force, and I was like, oh no.
Aaron, I thought the same thing. It was daylight, and I was like, oh, I can relax, thank Christ. I think they knew that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love, like, the directorial decision to, like, lull you into a false sense of security because of the sunlight. And yeah, Janice is trying to get out of her wheelchair. It's destroyed. And she gets possessed because Annabelle, like, vomits this, like, black goop that, if you listen to our Jennifer's Body episode, you know that demons love to throw up black goop.
It's their whole thing.
That is canonical.
I mean, that's in, like, The Exorcist, like, and we got that one, Jennifer's Body. Like, demons really need to watch what they eat.
Yeah, they have that's demons' biggest weakness. It's people commonly think it's like holy symbols or like saying Jesus Christ, but no, it's actually just a very sensitive tummy.
It's heartburn.
It's heartburn. And listen, as somebody who suffers from GERD, you gotta get on that omeprazole train. Malthus, hit me up. I mean, don't hit me up, but,
Don't give him tips.
Hit him up.
You got like 8 demons at your house. Hey, I'm sorry, can we borrow an acid reducer real quick?
And so everyone's starting to notice that Janice is behaving very strangely and very cruelly. And Linda actually tells Samuel that Janice went into Bee's room. And Samuel goes into the dining room and he finds Annabelle.
Before we finish this scene, I do want to talk about, because we mentioned it before, where Samuel has a off conversation with the nun, where he picks up a picture and she's like, oh, I got really close with these people in this nunnery. And then, like, a fucking, like, sticker from the 90s.
Like a magic eye picture, yeah.
Yeah, he slowly rotates it left and right, and he's like, oh, who's that? The demon in the background. And she's like, oh, I don't remember her.
Presumably, Michael, that's the nun from The Nun, right? Okay.
Yeah,
it's just a little Easter egg.
Valak. Yeah.
That's really
This is,
great. Good.
This is actually a, like, little hat tip because the nun had not come out yet.
Oh, it's an ARG.
You'll get acquainted with her later, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Perfect. Love that for me.
You'll meet more of Valak. She was in the post-credit scene, but you'll...
Oh, I did not watch the credits to this
Did not
film.
watch that either. Nope. Did not.
I did.
I just had to bring that up because it was, like, people rag on Marvel movies, which I adore, but that was the most Marvel shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, 100%. Incidentally, I think The Conjuring is kind of the MCU of horror.
Yes.
So, Janice, who obviously is actually possessed by Annabelle, approaches and confronts Samuel, and Samuel is like holding a crucifix, and his fingers snap backwards and like break in this like really strange CGI scene, and he like drops the crucifix and is just like brutally murdered.
Also, Janice was walking.
Yeah.
It reminded me very much of like evil Star Wars like AUs where like you see like a Sith use their powers for evil because like his fingers like peel back in a really gross way, and like of course it's, you know, CGI in like broad daylight, so it's very corny, but like I liked it. I thought it was a good bit, even though it was very silly to see this like little girl psychically obliterate this man.
It was great, and Sister Charlotte runs in and finds his corpse.
This is the point where you leave. This is the point where there's a dead body, and the night before, one of your orphans got fucking dropped from the top deck. Like, yeah, this is when we skedaddle.
Well, and that's the thing. Before possession, Janice tried to say that. She tried to be like, hey, we should leave, and Sister Charlotte's like, I don't know, dude, where are we gonna go? And Janice is like, literally anywhere?
It's
like,
the 50s.
anywhere.
The housing market will never be better than this.
And yeah, they don't listen to her. So Linda takes Annabelle away from Janice when she's sleeping and tries to bury the doll. Charlotte follows her. Linda opens the well and is telling her, hey, like, I'm dropping Annabelle down this well. And when they start walking back, Linda hears whispering that's, like, coming from the well. And Annabelle tries to pull her down with, like, some, like, human creepy hands. It's so good. I loved this scene. I actually rewatched this scene because I liked it so much.
I was so frustrated because I thought she was going to burn the doll, which to me makes, like, logical sense. I know it's a porcelain doll, so dropping it you'd think would break it. But, like, I would have dropped it and then chucked my kerosene lamp down in that motherfucker, too. I don't know if that will kill a demon, but it's gotta not feel good.
Well, keep in mind, like, this is what I imagine. I don't imagine, like, the demon is, like, in the doll. What I imagine is we can't see the demon and it's just, like, playing with the doll. So anytime Annabelle is walking, the demon's like moving her little legs.
It's like a marionette.
Yeah. So the demon's just like playing dolls. And so yeah, Annabelle's attacking her, and Charlotte says, we need to go ahead and not do this. So they go back to the house, they find the Annabelle doll where Janice should be on the couch. And Charlotte's like, where the fuck is Janice? And she takes the doll. She finds Esther, who is wearing the porcelain doll mask. And that's when we learn about all that I opened with like, the family was praying, and we learned that, you know, they invited this demon to live in this doll because they thought it was their daughter's spirit. And then the doll brutally attacked her and, like, plucked her eye from her head. And we get a reveal of, like, her scar and her, like, lack of an eye that's covered up by the porcelain doll face.
Her Zuko moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the writing world, we call this a lore dump, where they just do like, okay, hey, so you know all the exposition that you didn't get? Here it is. And I'm actually a defender of the lore dump. I think it works fine, and I think they set it up pretty well. I had read ahead like before I watched this movie to find out what happens in it, so I wasn't gonna be surprised. And I noticed some of the things, like his unwillingness to let people go into the room, obviously, but then like his like the Bible verses, like the Bible pages pasted to the walls, like that's a good detail that like, okay, yeah, something fucked up happened here. It's not just coming out of nowhere. It is foreshadowed, and I think it's a good touch.
Yeah, and it's kind of heavily foreshadowed, right? Like we get glimpses of Esther with the mask. We like have all of these tiny moments that lead up to this, and we saw B die in the opening scene. So I thought that I love a good lord up. Like, look, I watched all of Game of Thrones and all they did was like sexposition, where it's just like a bunch of people fucking in the background and they're like, yes, let me tell you about 100 years of history in this fantasy world, as there's just everyone fucking.
We joked middle school me was having the time of his life.
Is that really what Game of Thrones is like?
Yeah, it's literally, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Decent
the
program.
first couple seasons are worse than the later, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Not in content,
season 1 is like unholy in the amount of time they spend in brothels just like talking about lore.
Good.
For D&D campaign runners, so there you go, little tip from George R.R. I don't mind lore dumps. I am also a defender of them. However, the only thing that like upset me about this one is the entire time she was talking, I was just thinking, not the time, not the time,
It's really...
not the time.
Yeah.
This is the worst time it possibly could be. Maybe right after your husband died.
I mean, she doesn't seem to care very much that her husband is dead.
No, she wanted him to get a hobby so bad.
Yeah, that wasn't making dolls.
Yeah. He made a demon doll on accident.
Yeah, like, listen, ladies, if your husband doesn't have a hobby, and then he does get a hobby, and his hobby is the creepiest shit imaginable, like, you can do better.
Leave him. Honestly, if your husband doesn't have a hobby, leave him. If he has a creepy hobby, leave him. The answer from this podcast is just to leave him. So
Not all the time.
All the time. The mean girls find Janice and the Annabelle doll in B's room, and Janice cuts Nancy, and the girls are like sprinting downstairs to get Charlotte for help, and the girls call the police because police are really going to help with a possession.
To their defense, what else are you going to do?
So, like, I'm going to be honest. If I am dealing with a demonic presence, the police are literally the last people I'm calling.
Really? They're
Yes!
like, listen, Michael, I am one to not call the police. If a demon is ransacking my house, I am going to ask that every officer in the 100-mile radius get over here. Do you know how much good that would do for my society? Do you know how much good that would do for my community?
I see what you're saying. You're saying Annabelle is ACAB. All right.
So they run to Esther's room, and they find half of her body crucified against the wall.
It's
exactly like the Scarecrow. Chekhov's Scarecrow.
Listen, I'm not thrilled about the Mullinses. I think they made some bad choices being like, it's probably fine to put a bunch of people in danger in our extremely haunted house. I think
bunch of children.
Yeah, literal children. I think Miss Mullins gets done real dirty here, literally getting cut in half and then crucified with crucifixes to her wrists, like on her own wall. Like, it's a lot for somebody who they already, do some gross disfigurement ableism in. It's like, come on. Hasn't she been through enough?
And
this is later in the Conjuring verse. Do you think this is because some people complained that in the earlier movies, like, no one would die?
I think maybe. I think that's why some of these Annabelle films have such high body counts, because the mainline Conjuring films have a remarkably low body count for a horror franchise.
Well, it's also because they're quote-unquote connected to real stories.
Right.
And, like, these are all made-up characters, so they can kill all of them without somebody calling the studio being like, hey, a demon didn't cut me in half and crucify me.
I'm still here. I'm collecting a pension.
Well, and
I'm an accountant.
I do think, like, this brings something up, and this is actually thematically something we'll explore. I think The Conjuring series has a couple of blind spots that are very common in horror. Aaron, you mentioned the ableism. There, it is a very, 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 very white franchise, incredibly white. And their relationship with women is pretty bleak. In fact, one of the films that we will not be watching, The Devil Made Me Do It, actually has such a fucked up message around, like, women involved in it that, like, I don't know, it wouldn't be that interesting of a podcast because it would just be us talking about this is a shitty movie and its relationship with women is shitty, and then also, hey, it doesn't send good messages about mental illness, and on top of that, it wasn't scary.
Haha, fat man scary. Ah.
Right.
That movie's very bad.
Oh, good. Great.
It's so bad. It's the only one that James Wan's not involved in at all, and you can tell.
So instead, we'll be watching another movie by his Aquaman.
No, we will instead be continuing our Conjuring series. But first, we're going to go back to Charlotte, who finds Linda and Kate in the bedroom, and then Janice comes in. Charlotte is, like, offering a prayer in Latin, and then Janice levitates her and slams her against a mirror. Linda and Kate run, but then Kate trips and is dragged across the hallway. Linda is like, Kate, please get help. Janice is looking specifically for Linda, and the girls run out to the barn, and the door shuts right in front of half of them. And the demon emerges from the Scarecrow, because of course.
Okay.
And starts to...
This part got into some Final Destination territory.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, this is a bit much, because poor Mrs. Nancy, right? Who's trapped in the barn. Okay. So yeah, the Scarecrow, like, there are, the demon's hands pop out of the sleeves of the Scarecrow, and, like, the Scarecrow starts unscrewing the light bulb, and it's all very scary. And so Nancy goes to find a ladder to go pick up and fix the light bulb that the demon's unscrewing. But then she, like, gets knocked off the ladder, and then she has to go and find a hatchet, and then the head falls on the hatchet, so then she just has the hatchet handle, and, like, it keeps going through all these possible scenarios where, like, it seems like she's gonna get killed by one thing, but then she actually, that thing disappears and it becomes another, and I was just like, all right, what are we doing here?
The thing that infuriated me the most was the fucking ladder, where I just wanted to be like, that's not your biggest concern, man. I would also be scared if my only light source was going out. I'd be more scared about the demon currently clawing out of the Scarecrow.
Yeah. And so she's actually, she runs into the room where Samuel makes his dolls, and then she's rescued last minute through the windows, and they escape.
Right after she starts praying.
Yes. Linda is entering the Mullins bedroom, where Annabelle goes into Esther's corpse, and that's another just, like, really great creepy moment.
Is that after she gets in the dumbwaiter?
Yeah, she's already out of it at this point.
Yeah, but she uses that to escape, and then okay.
I just didn't feel like that. I'm getting us to the finish line.
I got you. There's a scene with that later, like when she,
yes.
She uses the dumbwaiter to escape the dead body coming, and then the demon tries to pull the dumbwaiter down.
Yes.
And she does my favorite thing in the movie, which is just give the demon hands that, like, she can see that are pulling the dumbwaiter down, and give him a little smack. Just smack him. No! And it works! You can't argue with results.
Yeah, she really does follow some, like, horror movie logic, but it always works out for her until the end.
To me, that implies that you can beat up a demon.
I don't know. It doesn't really end
Demons
very well for her.
Demons are stronger than 100 men, as we learned in our 23 Minutes in Hell episode, so...
Yeah.
They're also ugly, and I think I could use that against them.
That's true. We didn't learn whether or not demons are insecure.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, we know they are, because that's why they were killing people in hell, because they were so insulted by God's image.
Fair point.
I got him.
Linda is using the rope that's attached to get back to the room, and then she sees Janice. Janice is running after Linda. She runs into Bee's room and hides in the closet. Janice finds her, of course, throws her outside of the closet and tries to stab her. Then Sister Charlotte arrives to save Linda and locks Janice and the doll inside the closet.
With a great one-liner.
Take it away.
I hope I get this one right, but it's, forgive me, Father, for I'm about to sin. And then kicks his... Oh, no, is that not it?
That's way earlier.
Yeah.
Well, what did she say here?
None
of us remember.
I don't think she says
I
anything.
thought for sure that's what she said.
What happens is, like, the possessed Janice goes to stab, I think it's Sister Charlotte or her...
She goes to stab Linda, I think.
Linda, yes, she goes to stab Linda, but Sister Charlotte comes in holding the doll, and she stabs the doll, and that, like, weakens her enough that she can sort of toss them both in the closet, and then it's just like, well, shit, and then they, like, throw the whole, like, it's like a big china cabinet or something in front of the door to stop her from getting out.
Okay, I was so scared at that point in time. I was so happy. I was watching the minutes tick down, really.
So we cut to the next morning. Sister Charlotte and the orphans have left. The police have arrived to investigate, and they find the Annabelle doll in the closet, which they take as evidence. Janice has escaped through a hole in the closet wall, which is like this giant hole that I don't think we've seen before. And she found another orphanage in Santa Monica. She is then adopted, and she introduces herself as Annabelle. 12 years later, Annabelle has joined this cult called the Disciples of the Ram and murders her parents. Next door, their neighbors are awoken by the screams of those parents being murdered, and her husband goes to investigate. And that sets us up for our next film perfectly. And then in a post-credit scene, we get this creepy silhouette of this nun at a monastery, which sets up, hey, guess what? We're getting a nun film. So
Neither
that...
Aaron nor I got to that point.
I'll take your word for it.
My contract was up at that point, and anything extra, I have to get paid extra.
So, boys, what'd you think?
Pretty good.
It's a well-made movie. I think that there are some faults that we talk about, but as horror movies go, this is definitely one of the better ones. I hated almost every minute of it.
It was such a fun movie. What do you mean? You didn't have a great time?
No.
You're so close to sounding like... And I mean this with all of the insult my heart can muster towards my brother who I care about. You sound very youth pastory right now. We got back from that cool little sermon. Did you kids have fun? Wasn't that so neat?
I think the demonic possession storyline and Annabelle joining a satanic cult was just a cute little story.
Your phrasing kind of made it imply that do you mean the girl Annabelle or like the demon Annabelle joined a demonic cult?
Technically both of them.
That feels like an angel joining like a Methodist church. Like that feels incorrect.
You know, what can we say? The demons are here to wreak havoc on Earth, and the Annabelle demon found her niche, and that was satanic cults. So of course this film had to get into satanic panic because that is what our next movie is all about.
Whoa.
Cannot wait. But since we're recording this in the future, we don't have to watch this for another 2 weeks, so that's exciting.
You're not going to watch it twice, like once tonight and then once when we get closer?
Absolutely not.
I'm going to be honest, I might watch it tonight and then read the Wikipedia 5 minutes before we record.
Great, good.
I am going to definitely watch this twice. So, do you all have any final thoughts before we get to our reviews?
I don't mind the idea of this movie more, like, because some of the later ones we'll get into, it bugs me what they do with the Warrens, because I don't think we should be looking at these people as heroes. I don't believe we should be looking at 99.999% of historical figures as heroes.
I don't think we should be looking at anyone as heroes, because they're humans and they will fail us.
Yeah,
that's why we have a new theme song, if you haven't noticed.
I'm still a barb. I'm just in recovery. I'm sorry. Get the vaccine. Don't listen to Nicki Minaj, but listen to her music still.
Yeah, and keep an eye on your testicles, just in general. If you feel any lumps or anything, contact your doctor. But the reason I don't mind this movie is because it's all 100% fucking fake, and they don't try to hide that. Mm-hmm. Where horror movies really frustrate me is when they're like, this is based on true events. I'm like, no, it's not. And I know you're doing it because you're trying to make people go like, ghosts are real. But what you're actually doing is insulting victims and perpetuating this idea that, like, mental illness isn't real and that demons cause it.
Yeah, and again, that is a large reason, the biggest argument against including The Devil Made Me Do It, because that is so obviously what is going on with that film, but
they were out of good stories by that point. The real-life story of The Conjuring 2, which we will get into, the Warrens were there for, like, 15 minutes. Yeah. Like, the movie's almost, like, 4 hours long.
It is not.
It's a very long movie.
As if I would make us watch a 4-hour movie. Have you met me?
No, that's only when you're not on the podcast and Aaron and I watch a Civil War movie.
Let's watch a 3-hour historical documentary.
That leads to Aaron and I going, man, that sucked for an hour.
Fucking miserable.
And me going, I will not watch that. Well, I think it's time for reviews.
I'm going to give this one Imagine Dragons Demons.
Oh, I wish that I could give this an Imagine Dragons Demons. I love that song. I'm going to give this the Sixth Station of the Cross. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus because, like, yeah, I didn't technically look at it directly the whole time, but I think, the spirit was still there. It was all right.
Yeah, the good news is, much like the Holy Ghost, the spirit of Annabelle is always with us. So even if you don't realize that she's there, she's ever present with you. Aaron just shook his head.
Not me. No, they're not welcome.
Yeah, she's with you. She's with you right now. So that brings me to my review. I am going to go ahead and give this 3 out of 5 Raggedy Ann dolls, because this film just does get a lot less scary when you realize that Annabelle's a Raggedy Ann doll, but I still had a good time during it.
I think it's twice as scary. I disagree with the directors. That's way more fucked up than the little felt thing moving around. That would have made the movie 80 times better. Give me the Raggedy Ann cut.
Forget what happens at the end of the podcast.
So where do people find us on the internet? I don't have my podcasting hat on. Boys, where can people find you on the internet?
I am at Green History on Twitter.
I'm at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
I'm at AaronSXL on Twitter. You can listen to the other podcast I do at Mortified Pod. We are also doing a spooky-ish season over at Mortified. I think before this episode comes out, we will have watched Twilight on Mortified, so definitely tune in for that one. That's going to be a fun one. But yeah, if you like spooky stuff, this is a good time to switch over to Mortified. But and also, we didn't say it at the top of the show, but please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys. This is a fun project. We hope that you will all think it's fun, and we hope that you think it's good enough to share with your friends. So word of mouth, that's important.
Yeah, you should tell your friends about the Gospel According to Annabelle. Tell them about the Cult of the Ram. And
not about Paul.
Most importantly, about this podcast.
Well, listeners, if the prospect of me and Josh having to sit through another 3 horror movies brings tears to your eyes, just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.